Okay, in this video we're gonna introduce the curve editor. So in the previous videos we blocked out the animation, alright, and then we went into our timeline and we worked on our timing, alright. Then once our animation was the way we wanted to, we took and we assigned a parent constraint so the claw could lift up the box and kind of place it in another location. Now I want to go to the curve editor so I can actually add a little bit more interest to the movement of my claw. You can find the curve editor in let's say 2 locations. You can find the under window animation editors and then graph editor, and if you click on that it's going to open a menu here, okay? And initially you're not going to see anything. You won't see anything in your curve editor unless you have something selected, okay? The other way that you can look at this is by these viewport kind of shortcuts that you have on your tools on the side. There's one that has an image of a perspective kind of viewport here and the curve editor underneath, so I'm just going to click on that one. So it's going to change to a viewport where I can see. Let me just close the attribute editor here in my tools and all that stuff. Okay, so I can see not only my perspective viewport, but I can also see my curve editor. So I want to begin perhaps by selecting this control. Alright, and then we can kind of see our curves here. You can kind of navigate around the curve editor the similar way that you do around your Maya viewport. If you hold Alt and middle mouse click, you can just kind of pan around. Alright, if you need to get closer to something, if you hold Alt and right click, you can get closer or further away. Okay. Also, there's going to be times where you're going to need to kind of maybe stretch this out a little bit in order to be able to kind of get really close or to seeing what's happening here. So you can do that by holding Alt Shift, and then if you right click and drag, you can expand it. And that's if you're moving to the side. If you do it up and down, it's going to stretch up and down. Okay, so that's going to help with the navigation within the viewport. Here on your left, you're going to see a box that basically shows you anything that's being highlighted. All right, and then it's going to give you kind of a list of the attributes that it has, and or basically it's going to give you it's going to show you anything that's kind of has any keyframes assigned to it. Now in this case, because we went and selected everything and clicked on S, it actually assigned a keyframe to everything. So if I go to that translate X, we're going to see that there's a keyframe for everything, but if we look back into our animation, there is only the only thing that we did to this object is actually just the rotation, and we didn't do any sort of movement. So when you have keyframes in an object that are basically not doing anything, or they are basically standing still, you're just going to see a straight line. So these black dots represent basically the keyframes, and this straight line means that there is no movement. Okay. You only the only time that you see movement is any time the curve goes up and down. All right. So if we go through the translates, we're not going to see anything. The rotate X, we didn't do anything with. Rotate Y is going to have curves because we actually rotated it from side to side to make the movement. And again, we're not going to see anything with rotate or the scales, okay? Because most of the animation we did was with the rotate Y. So that means that even if we wanted to go back here and, for instance, select a translate X, select them all, and just delete them. Again, we could do this through the curve editor because there was no movement happening there. So I could go in here and kind of clean up again what I don't need, the information that's kind of being stored into this object that it doesn't need. So I can delete the keyframes of these attributes that are not doing anything, so I can just kind of concentrate on the rotate Y. But I could, and again, notice that if it doesn't have a keyframe, that attribute is not going to appear on this box. All right. So, and again, that's something you can do. Just kind of edit out your animation, and we just got rid of some keyframes right there. You can also just select the specific attribute that has the animation and just focus on that one. So let's analyze what these curve means. Okay. We have again the flat curves, which usually means that there is no activity. All right, and then we have curves that go up and down. All right, which means that there is something going on there. Okay, and again, in this case, there's a rotation. That means that there is a rotation going from. And again, if I were to look in my channel box over here. Okay, so we're starting out at 45 degrees. Okay, so that means that by default we're at 0. So by going upper graph at 45 is going to show that it's going to start here. Okay, and then since on the next movement we rotated it on the y-axis to 0, it's going to go from this point down to where 0 is located on our graph. Alright, so that means that anytime we go down, it's a negative rotation or movement, and anytime we go up, like we are doing here, it's a positive one. Again, in this case, it went from 45 to 0, and at this point, it went from 0 to, I believe, 90. At this point, okay. So that's what you can deduce just by looking at the shape or the position of the keyframes and the way that the curves is laid out. So again, flat means no movement. Curve going down means some sort of movement or rotation happening in a negative direction, and anything going up means something happening in a positive direction or movement. Okay. So now we need to kind of look into what the shape of the curve is telling us. Okay, so it's a couple of shapes that you kind of have to keep in mind. Again, straight lines means no movement. All right, when you have any curve that looks like this, is what's called the ease in and out. Right, that means that there is going to be a slow start, then it's going to find a constant speed, and then it's going to slow down before it gets to the end. Alright, the other one will be that you can find is something called linear animation. Alright, or a linear tangent. So again, this one being the ease in and out. Alright, if I wanted to turn this into a linear animation, we have a couple of shortcuts here that we can use. The one that has a straight line kind of going down like this, and again, if you highlight it, it says linear tangent, it'll change your curve into a straight line. So linear means that from the moment that it starts to the end, it's at a constant speed. Okay, so again, this curve means that the speed, again, ease in and out, is going to start slow, find a constant speed, and then slow down before it gets to the end. When you have a tangent like this, it means that it's at a constant speed the whole time. Okay, so by looking at our curves here, we can determine that basically all the animation that we have going on in this joint, or in this elbow here of our claw, it's ease in and out. Okay, and again, one of the reasons why this happened is because when before I started my animations, and I was under my preferences, I'm just gonna go to settings and animation. When it comes to tangent, I left it at automatic. That means that basically every movement that I created, it created an ease in and out kind of curve for me to kind of work with. But you can also, again, if you prefer any other type of tangent in this situation, you can always change it here as well. Again, if I wanted my animation to be linear, meaning that everything always keeps at a constant speed, I could have left it at could have changed it to linear, and all of these are going to do something different. But again, and this is kind of a decision that you kind of have to do at the beginning. I kind of left it at default because again, ease in and out usually kind of does really nice animation, and for what we're doing, it doesn't need to be that complicated. So I'm just going to leave it as is. Close this. Okay. So let's look at what else we can determine by the shape of our curve here. Now, Maya kind of gives us a couple of tools here that we can use to kind of modify the shape of our curve. Okay. Basically, when you select the keyframe, which are these black dots, you get these handles. All right. And again, to select the keyframe, I'm just marquee selecting, holding the left mouse click and just letting go, and it selects it. If I want to select the handles, I'm just going to do the same on the handle. Alright, and then to move the handle, I would middle mouse click and then just go up and down. Alright, now when we have a curve, alright, I'm just gonna modify this curve a little bit. Alright, and again, I'm gonna get a little bit close here just so I can show you what I'm doing here. Alright, so initially we had a curve that was easing into the constant speed and then easing out as it got to the end. When you have a curve where the curve goes above where it starts, then eases into a constant speed, and then goes below where the final keyframe is going to do, what it's going to do is something called follow through. Alright, or at least and again, let me just show you what that means. You're going to see when we play an animation that as it's going to do a little bit of an anticipation before it does the movement. Alright, and again, it's very subtle. Alright, now the reason why it's doing that, it's because again, we have the initial keyframe at 45, correct? Then we took the curve and we moved it up. So that means that the animation is going to start going in a positive direction towards 50 degrees and then go down in a negative constant speed. So that's why you see it doing this little bit of anticipation before it kind of moves towards the other direction. Okay, then it follows a constant speed at this point, and then before it reaches this point at 0, it's actually going to go even in a further negative direction before it stops. Alright, and is this little subtleties that you can add to your animation that can actually add a little bit more interest to it. Okay, now the what we're seeing here is a little bit subtle. All right, but you know, it looks again, it looks very interesting when I have that little bit of a bounce there. So it's something that I want to kind of add throughout the animation. So I'm actually going to do the same thing to the curves for all the movements. So again, I'm going to select my keyframe here, select the handle, kind of move it down. So it's kind of going in a negative direction. Alright, but again, one of the things that happens here now is that by modifying the shape of the curve here and, you know, selecting the one handle, is actually moving the other one along as well. So, but we need this to stay kind of in that constant still position in order to kind of keep the animation the way we desire. So another thing that you can do it's also break this tangents, so you're only affecting one side and not both. The way that you do that is by selecting your keyframe, and you're gonna click on this symbol, which means break tangents. Okay, and when you click on that one, notice that the handles now change. One changes color. That means that I can affect them separately without affecting the other side. All right. And I'm going to be doing the same thing on this one, because again, I don't want to modify that this keyframes here that need to stay still. So again, I'm going to break that and just modify this side. Okay, and if I play this animation, you're going to see a little bit of anticipation before it does the movement, just like we did with the other one. All right, and again, those movements are just very subtle, but it adds a little bit interest to our mechanical arm. All right. And I want to do the same here at the end before it goes back to the original position. And again, I'm going to break my tangents here, move it up, and this one is fine because I don't need to break it because this is the last keyframe, so it's fine. And again, let me just play the animation. Okay, so again, it's adding a little bit of interest to our animation by adding that little bit of an anticipation and follow through as it moves. Okay. Now, let's just see what else we can do here. And again, remember that what was it? Around here we didn't break our handle here, so you can always kind of break it afterwards and just kind of make sure that this one stays flat as well, because we don't want to have any sort of movement there. Because anytime you see any sort of curve, something needs to be moving or happening. So again, if you desire for your object to stay still, you need to make sure that your tangents are flat, and any curves like this means that there is some sort of movement. Alright, so I'm just going to go around and do again a couple of modifications to some of these curves. Nothing too drastic, but just something to add a little bit of interest to my animation. And again, I need to determine what keyframes I actually added some movement, and I'm pretty sure the only one was translate Y. And again, when I select it, it looks like it's a flat tangent, but the only reason why it looks like that is because the movements that I created here are very subtle. So that's why I need to use this kind of stretching kind of technique. And again, you do this by holding Alt Shift. All right. So by doing this, you can actually see the movement that we created here. All right. And now that I've done that, I can go in here and modify the tangent so I can actually see a little bit of anticipation or follow through as it's moving. So as it's going down. Again, I can come here. I'm going to break this tangent. I'm going to select this handle, move it up a bit. Same here at the end. And again, because these curves are so this movement is so solid, you're not. So what you need to do, sometimes what you need to be able to do is actually be able to stretch this tangent a little bit, so you can actually extend the the follow through or the anticipation that you're trying to create. So the way to do that is that you select your keyframe, alright, go to curves and turn them from non-weighted tangents to weighted tangents. Alright, so, and there's going to be a little bit of a switch, and now you see that your handles are kind of round. Now the next thing I like to do is select this tangent, alright, and then I'm going to use the free tangent weight, and then you're going to see the little circle turn into like an empty box. So what this is going to allow me to do is to be able to stretch this curve as much as I need to be able to create that animation, or that that follow through that I'm trying to create here. Again, now that I've done that, you can see that it's more evident before it actually goes down. And again, it's very subtle. And I can actually do the same thing here at the bottom. Okay. And again, these are all non-weighted tangents now, so I'm just going to use the free tangent weight. Okay. And I can extend that a little bit. And again, I have to be careful with this because again, a flat line going up and down is going to be a very fast movement. Okay, it could be almost instant, and so I got to make sure that I'm not creating some sort of flat line here. All right, and again, I'm just trying to create a little bit of interest for that mechanical arm. Okay. So again, just to cover again what we just went over, we selected this control and we changed. We talked about what the shape of the curve means, and all right, we talked about flat, meaning that there is no movement. We talked about linear animation and that being constant velocity throughout. And then we talked about the ease in and out type curve, and then this one that we modified so we would have a little bit of anticipation or follow through. Okay, and again, this type of curve and what it means. And then we went to this control and we talked about the non-weighted tangents and the weighted tangents, and we took these keyframes and we turned them into weighted tangents. We also turned on the free tangent weight so we could kind of stretch them out, and so we can kind of have a little bit more freedom with how much of this anticipation was created with the handle. We also learned how to break the tangents. Alright, so these are the basics of the curve editor, and alright, this concludes this lesson.